Welcome to Real Unsolved Crimes. Tonight, we journey back to the early 1970s in Washington, D.C., a time of cultural change, political turmoil, and fear. Between April 1971 and September 1972, the nation's capital was gripped by a series of horrific murders. 6 young African-American girls were abducted, raped, and strangled. Their bodies were dumped near major roadways. The killer was never caught, and the press gave him a name as chilling as his crimes, the Freeway Phantom. The nightmare began on April 25, 1971. 13-year-old Denise Spinks was sent to the store by her older sister. It was just a short walk across the border from southeast D.C. into Maryland. She never came back. 6 days later, her body was found off a grassy embankment near I-295. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Her sneakers were missing. Authorities were shaken, but no one expected the horror to repeat itself so soon. Just over 2 months later, on July 8, 1971, 16-year-old Alenia Johnson vanished while on her way to work. Her body was discovered 11 days later, in a wooded area just 15 feet from where Carol Spinks had been found. The similarities were unmistakable. She had also been strangled. Her body had decomposed too much to determine sexual assault. Now, police were alarmed. A predator was loose. Only weeks later, on July the 27th, 10-year-old Brenda Crockett went missing after walking to the store near her home in northwest D.C. That night, her family received 2 chilling phone calls. It was Brenda. She sobbed into the phone, saying, "A white man picked me up, and I'm heading home in a cab." But she never made it. Her body was found the next morning, near U.S. Route 50. She had been raped and strangled. White fibers were found in her hair. The phone call seemed staged, as if someone was coaching her. Many believe her killer forced her to lie, to confuse the investigation. A month later, on October the 1st, 12-year-old Nenemosha Yates was abducted while walking to the Safeway. Her body was found within hours, left along Pennsylvania Avenue. She had also been sexually assaulted and strangled. A green synthetic fiber was found on her clothing. The killer was evolving, taunting, slipping past every police effort. On November 15, 1971, 18-year-old Brenda Denise Woodard got on a bus after a night class at Cardozo High School. She never made it home. Her body was discovered hours later, stabbed and strangled, left on a grassy slope off Route 202. But this time, the killer left a note. Equals. It was tucked in her coat pocket, written in neat handwriting. It read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can. Freeway Phantom." It was the first, and only, communication directly from the killer. The signature, Freeway Phantom, was born from his own words. 10 months passed before the next confirmed victim. In September 1972, 17-year-old Diane Denise Williams disappeared after leaving her boyfriend's house. Her body was found near I-295. She had been strangled, her clothing undisturbed, suggesting she may not have been sexually assaulted. But the pattern was clear. The Phantom had returned. And then, just as suddenly, he vanished. 6 victims. 1 city. No arrests. The investigations were marred by poor communication between law enforcement agencies. The murders took place across multiple jurisdictions, D.C., Maryland, Prince George's County, each with their own detectives, their own records, and at times, their own egos. The FBI eventually joined the case, but evidence was scarce. DNA testing was decades away. Composite sketches were created. Psychologists developed profiles. The killer was believed to be organized, intelligent, and likely familiar with the neighborhoods. Some theorized he could have been a police officer, given how easily he moved through the area and managed to silence victims without drawing attention. But leads went nowhere. Over the years, several suspects were considered. One was Robert Askins, a convicted rapist and suspected serial killer. He was linked to at least 5 homicides in the D.C. area and had a disturbing history. He once poisoned 5 women with cyanide. When police searched his home in the 1970s, they found disturbing writings and details matching the Freeway Phantom note. But no definitive evidence tied him to the murders. He was never charged. Others speculated that the killer may have been part of a local gang, the Green Vega Rapists, who abducted women in a green Chevrolet Vega. They operated in the same area during the early 70s. Some gang members were questioned. Some confessed to unrelated assaults. But the link to the Phantom was never proven. And so, the case went cold. In recent years, new efforts have been made to reopen the files. Advances in forensic science, especially DNA testing, have given investigators hope. But much of the original evidence has been lost, degraded, or mishandled. The families of the victims continue to fight for justice. They hold vigils. They speak to the press. They keep the memories of their daughters alive. Their grief has never faded. And neither has the silence from the killer. Who was the Freeway Phantom? A lone predator who used charm and deceit to lure young girls? A man hiding in plain sight, perhaps behind a badge, a uniform, or a smile? Or something else entirely? We may never know. But what we do know is this: Carol, Darlenia, Brenda, Nenamosha, Brenda Denise, and Diane deserved better. Their lives mattered. Their stories must be told. And their case must not be forgotten. If you were in DC during the early 70s, if you remember anything about these cases, or if a family member ever said something that didn't quite add up, come forward. The truth may still be out there. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Real Unsolved Crimes. Subscribe, share, and help us keep these cold cases alive. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, some phantoms still walk among us.